Hi, my name is Steve Swear, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about Project 2.11, Establishment of the National Center for Coasts and Climate, Phase 1. So I was the lead chief investigator of this project, and David Kennedy, who is a coastal geomorphologist, was the deputy chief investigator. We're based at the University of Melbourne, and this project was done in partnership with Monash, Deakin, and Southern Cross universities. And we addressed 3 of the hub climate challenges by on-ground actions in response to the carbon cycle and future warming, changes in coastal climate, and extremes and disaster risk management. We worked under 3 research themes. In terms of the blue carbon research theme, the problem that we were addressing was an incomplete understanding of what processes and management actions influence blue carbon stocks and accumulation rates. And we addressed this problem by assessing the current scientific understanding of processes that affect carbon stock and carbon accumulation rates and the ways they are measured in blue carbon ecosystems. We also evaluated the methods used to estimate carbon stock and transfer processes in vegetated coastal ecosystems and identified ways in which we can improve them. And we also assessed how management activities impact carbon stock and accumulation rates in these ecosystems. And then we implemented on-ground management actions or activities for improving carbon accumulation. In terms of our second research theme, coastal erosion, the problem that we addressed was the low resolution of how climate change will impact on coastal erosion at scales relevant to management. And we addressed this problem by quantifying shoreline change on the Victorian coast, providing the first state-level data set of historic shoreline position. The drivers of these changes were also assessed in partnership with the CSIRO. And we also analyzed the historic change in shoreline position and identified erosion hotspots. And then finally, we synthesized the likely drivers of change, including coastal vegetation, shoreline orientation, and wave energy. In terms of our third research theme, eco-engineering, the problem that we tackled was a lack of awareness of the value and feasibility of ecological engineering solutions to climate change impacts in the coastal zone and how to implement them. To address this problem, we reviewed the efficacy of nature-based coastal defense compared to more traditional artificial structures. We collaborated with end users on installing a shellfish breakwater, hybrid mangroves, as you see in this image here on the left, and mangroves with rock fillets. And then we evaluated the natural coastal protection provided by a range of natural vegetated habitats, including kelp, mangroves, salt marsh, and seagrass. And then we combined all this to begin the development of underpinning guidelines for nature-based coastal defense. In terms of benefits of this research, for the blue carbon theme, through close engagement with local government, coastal managers, and end users, our work has ensured local and federal government are better informed on how to manage blue carbon ecosystems, to protect existing carbon stocks, and to maximize future carbon storage potential. It's helped to inform method development for the Emissions Reduction Fund through a review of how management impacts on blue carbon stocks. And it's enabled end users to have increased confidence when assessing potential impacts of coastal management interventions on blue carbon. Our research and outputs have been communicated through scientific publications, community bulletins, and stakeholder face-to-face meetings. And the reaction to the suggested changes in stock assessment methodology has unsurprisingly been somewhat mixed, as it highlights some of the issues with existing data on some of our current carbon inventories. However, practitioners have welcomed suggestions on how we can improve our sampling accuracy. In terms of the benefits of the coastal erosion, through our engagement with local government, coastal managers, and the CSIRO, our work has enabled end users to have increased confidence when managing current and future erosion. And it's ensured local government's going to be better informed on how to interpret shoreline erosion events for enhanced coastal management decisions. Our research and outputs have been communicated through scientific publications and meetings. And the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive and has led to the development in collaboration with Deakin University with the now running program of the Victorian Coastal Monitoring Program. In terms of the eco-engineering theme, the benefits have been accrued through our close engagement with local government and coastal managers, and it has ensured that research is meeting management and policy needs, and has expanded the toolbox used by coastal managers to include more sustainable shoreline protection methods. It's also provided information and data for use in developing state and national guidelines for on-ground implementation of nature-based solutions. And finally, it's raised awareness of coastal erosion and dune recovery for input into current and future coastal management. Similar to our other research themes, our outputs have been communicated through scientific publications, bulletin updates, and meetings. And the reactions have been affirming, with end users interested in these alternative approaches and providing funding to trial these different solutions. The outcomes of our blue carbon theme have been guidelines on how to adapt current methods for measuring sediment carbon to improve accuracy of blue carbon stock estimates. Key knowledge needs for developing methods for climate change mitigation in blue carbon ecosystems under Australia's Emissions Reduction Fund. And the future impacts of this will be implementation of best practice management policies for vegetated coastal ecosystems to maximize their value as carbon stores. Our related success is that we were able to attract additional funding from the Victorian government to establish field trials testing the impact of assisted mangrove restoration on sediment blue carbon stocks. Outcomes for coastal erosion have been identification of erosional hotspots on the Victorian coast at scales relevant to management, and published assessments of change in relation to environmental drivers. The establishment of the Victorian Coastal Monitoring Program, which is utilizing citizen scientists to monitor coastal change. And improved predictions of future erosion through on-ground evidence of climate change. The impact of these outcomes is that it will enable managers to move beyond generic erosion risk response to coastal resilience planning that's tailored to local environmental conditions or drivers. The outcomes of our eco-engineering research have been to identify the major knowledge gaps in the wider implementation of nature-based coastal defense for coastal management. The establishment of on-ground Victorian case studies to address these knowledge gaps and to provide an understanding of when and where a nature-based coastal defense solution is effective and appropriate. The impact of these outcomes will be increased awareness of different solutions that will enable stakeholders to implement these novel approaches that have not been implemented previously. It's also given us an opportunity to engage at national initiatives and at the policy interface, with members of the center sitting on advisory groups for policy development for marine spatial planning and nature-based coastal defense under the new Victorian Marine and Coastal Act. So what are our next steps? For blue carbon, what we want to do is develop a standard method for assessing changes in carbon stocks, building upon what we've learned in Project 2.11. In terms of coastal erosion, we're going to advance our observations to develop an ecological and geomorphological index of dune resilience to coastal erosion. And in terms of eco-engineering, assess the effectiveness of a hybrid living shoreline approach for habitat restoration and coastal protection that builds upon all the case studies that we developed in this current project. And we'll achieve all this through ongoing engagement with a range of stakeholders to ensure coastal management and decisions are better informed. And ultimately what we're hoping to do then is, as we see on this image here on the left, is to work more collaboratively, such as with Engineers Australia, to develop climate adaptation change guidelines for nature-based coastal defense in coastal management and planning. And so we've already started on this journey or this roadmap last year, where we started developing this project and engaged with stakeholders and received their input. This has resulted in the development and implementation of a range of case studies through community consultation. We're now moving into 2019 and 2020, where we're now monitoring and evaluating these case studies. And the hope is that the knowledge gained from these on-ground actions can be incorporated and presented at a national workshop on nature-based coastal defense in the middle of next year, ultimately culminating in a foundation, if you like, of a nature-based national guideline for coastal management and planning. So that's it for Project 2.11. I hope you've enjoyed this brief summary, and feel free to contact me if you would like more information. And thank you for listening.